Today I'm joined by Dan Ridenhour, the men's soccer coach here at Winthrop. Thank you for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
So it's been a while. How have you been spending your time while being quarantined?
Um, Probably like many others, a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of Zoom meetings. I think I've played the role of second grade teacher, referee at the house, uh, trying to keep our kids entertained and occupied. We're really fortunate. My in-laws live in town, so my children have been able to at least still see them and hang out with them every afternoon. So I have been able to get a little alone time to work. So that's been nice.
Have you been watching any movies or shows?
Uh, I finished Homeland, which was excellent. I have not gone back. My wife is a Mrs. Maisel fan. I have not seen season 3 yet. Um, I don't think I've really completely binge watched on any one show. I've just kind of watched a bunch of things. I did watch The Last Dance, like I'm sure a lot of people did. So it was just, and I've actually been trying to watch a lot of games that I can find on YouTube, old games, and I've watched a lot of our own Winthrop soccer games in our platforms.
Okay, so high level soccer returned without fans in Germany a couple weeks ago. And of course, there's leagues all across the world that are hoping to make a comeback soon. How different do you think it will be on the field without fans and following any other rules and protocols that are put into place?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I think when you get into start playing as a young person, when you're 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, usually the only people that are at your games are your parents and families. So I almost want to say it's a little bit of a return to kind of loving the sport. It's obviously different for players at the level where there's sometimes 40, 50, 70,000 people in a stadium, and now you're playing in an empty venue. I mean, I watched 2 or 3 of the games this past weekend live in the Bundesliga, and I mean, there was obviously a different feel to it. You can hear obviously more than you probably ever heard before on a field. Um, I don't know, obviously the return to play for the NCAA will look different in probably many different places. I'm anxious to see what the plans will be put in place. I'm obviously anxious to eventually get back and get onto the field and get back with players and being able to interact with people face to face, because I think that's what we all enjoy in being college coaches, being in college athletics. Our administrators like seeing our student athletes. So
And speaking of your student athletes, how have you and your staff been keeping in touch with them all across the world during this time?
um, just like this, I think we've had a weekly Zoom every Monday, and it's kind of been like a check-in for the whole team, kind of what's the plan for the week. We've tried to do a couple of educational sessions with alumni, um, just where guys could just ask questions of different fields professionally. We've now moved into we had a period where we couldn't contact them with obviously exams, and now we're back into a period where we can kind of chat. So this week we've been doing some smaller group stuff with defenders, midfielders, forwards, showing them video. I got the tactics board behind me, and we were on a call earlier with some guys, just showing some things that we're looking at moving forward. And we've also tried to give them some space, knowing that obviously I think our university did a tremendous job, and all the professors with the remote learning. I think it was probably a challenge for everyone. I think our IT department obviously did a tremendous job to get things prepared. So I think students were a little bit overwhelmed, so we didn't try to throw too much at them in the early days of when all this all happened. And then uh, WhatsApps for our team is probably the platform we use the most, just communicating with guys all over the world. And most of our guys are at home now, and yeah. And we've tried to send them some articles and things, and little clips of videos to watch, and where we could at least have a discussion about that. So that's been interesting to have some um, articles that have sent out that have challenged those guys.
So let's talk about spring season. How was that for you and your team, and how do you feel going into 2020?
Uh, First of all, I'm disappointed for all our spring sports. I mean, I think the 100% the right decision was made to stop when we did. and disappointed for our men's basketball program, who had a tremendous season and was going to the, to the NCAA tournament. But softball, track and field, all those sports and the student athletes missed that opportunity to compete. So for us, our spring was we were able to play 2 matches. We were able to get a lot out of both matches early. We were actually scheduled to play on the 12th of March over at Wingate, and I think the night before, that's when the NBA had canceled the games, and then to be honest, it was a snowball effect within hours of, we're going to go play the game, maybe we're going to play the game, and we're not going to go play the game. So for us, it was, our spring season was shortened and condensed. We missed out on hosting our annual Manchester Cup, which is always a fun event with other teams coming in. For our fall, we don't really know what it's going to look like as far as when we get back. What's our return to play protocol going to look like? I think we're still a little bit uncertain what our recruiting class really is. We haven't announced that yet, because we are a sport that recruits internationally. We do have quite a few domestic players we recruited this year. So it's just a matter of trying to determine if those guys, the internationals, will even be able to get visas to come to the United States, because currently the embassies across the United States are closed for those purposes. So I think our fall season is, we could be further along than we think, and then we could be further behind than we think. We really don't know. And I think all the other schools across the country are in the same situation.
So kind of touching on international recruiting, that's kind of taken on a larger role in soccer. Can you give us some insight on what that process is typically like?
So over the years, Winthrop is, and I going back to former head coach Pasapenko, I don't think our president or administration wants us to have a full roster of internationals. I think an international student athlete typically has the chance to be a little bit older, because there's a lot of different systems educationally throughout the world where guys will, they'll graduate at 19 or 20. Well, a 19 or 20-year-old is going to be further along than a 17, 18-year-old. Our roster's probably only going to be about 30% international, where in the past it's been almost 50. It's getting harder to recruit international students because there's more competition for those players. Obviously, we have contacts in many different countries. We've been fortunate and been blessed to continue to build relationships and try to strengthen relationships where we can always have kind of a pipeline from certain areas. Spain recently has been very good to us. Africa in the past was a really hot spot for us. We kind of, I don't want to say we dried up, but we were really unlucky for about 6 years where we were in Uganda. And I think the last time I looked at a roster from the Ugandan national team, I think we had actually signed 8 players that were on the roster, but never could get them in the United States through the visa process. So that was an unfortunate situation. The challenge is obviously being able to get players who want to come to Winthrop. There's a big draw, obviously, for us as being in Rock Hill. We can say we're near Charlotte, and we're near a major international airport that's easy to get in and out of. And I think the biggest thing for us is we're going to continue to look at international players, but we're also going to continue to try to develop and build relationships locally where we get top players that'll stay close to home.
So to wrap things up, I've seen this going around on social media a little bit, so I wanted to ask you your 5-a-side team. So I want you to give me your top 5 players that make up your dream team.
Current or former, past, it doesn't matter?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Probably Paolo Maldini. He was an Italian defender. I would probably go next with and I'll go defender and I'll go a striker. Now I would probably say Messi. Might as well just throw Ronaldo in there, Cristiano for it. And then I would probably go back to Roy Keane, who was a Man United player and played for the Republic of Ireland. So I'm at 4. Gosh. 5th player. I'm going to go Fernando Redondo. He was a player from Argentina. I actually saw him play. First time I ever saw him play live was in the '94 World Cup in Dallas, and he ended up playing for Real Madrid. He was an unbelievable talent. Um, he would be kind of the anchor of that midfield group, and he would also let Roy Keane go around and kick people more. So that'd be my five-a-side if I had to pick a team.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It was great talking to you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.